If you're going to mount your TV on a concrete wall, it's probably going to have some kind of covering. Probably not going to be just blocks unless you have just the painted blocks, and then that's easy. You can just drill your holes, line up your TV mount, make sure it's level and plumb, and mark your holes, drill your holes, and then you can hold this right up to the concrete wall and then drive in your screws like a Tapcon concrete screw. But you probably have some kind of covering. You might have either concrete or plaster over block or brick, in which case it's probably about a ½ inch. And you want to make sure that your screw is long enough to get at least 1 inch into the actual concrete or brick. So in that case, you wouldn't use the shorter ones. You would use a longer one to make sure it's in the brick, because the plaster is not exactly going to hold it. You want to make sure the brick or the concrete is going to be holding the TV. What if you have furring strips? So you have furring strips, then you have something like drywall over the furring strips, which leaves a space. So you wouldn't be able to use the anchors with the lag bolts in that case, because you wouldn't be able to tap these in deep enough. So in that case, you would just use a longer concrete screw, and preferably a spacer. If you have 1x3s or these 3/4 inch furring strips, you can actually just drill. So these would be held onto the furring strips with drywall screws, and you can just drill through the drywall and the wood, drill a big enough hole so that your concrete screws are going to pass right through it. So you're not going to be threading into the wood at all, but you're going to be drill a hole big enough. Otherwise, you'll need spacers. So you'll have a space here, and then you can drill a large enough hole to tap a spacer in there, and then you can put your TV mount over that, and then this would go through the spacer into the concrete. You could, if the TV is mounted where a furring strip is, which you can find with a stud finder or a magnet, because the drywall screws hopefully are metal. So then you can find the drywall screws or the furring strip and then use that kind of as a spacer, and then you can tighten this all the way down without fear of breaking the drywall, because it'll be tight up against the furring strip. That is if the TV mount is where a furring strip is. And you can use this one stud TV mount, so it's 3 vertical holes, and then just make sure you have a long enough screw to get into the concrete. If you can't find the furring strips for whatever reason, or the furring strips aren't where you want the TV to be mounted, then you'll want to use some kind of spacer, because when you tighten it and you move the TV around, it's just going to push against the space, and then you might crack the drywall. You want spacers there. You can get steel spacers, not the plastic ones, preferably, that come with TV mounting kits. Those are for attaching the back part of the mount onto the TV. But you'll get the metal spacers and then put them in, and then you can put the TV mount over where the spacers are, and then these will go through the mount, through the spacer, which goes through the drywall and touching. It's right up against, the spacer will be right up against the concrete. So in the end, you'll have a TV mount with a concrete screw going through the spacer right here. The spacer will be right up against the concrete, and then you'll have at least 1 inch of threads or more for the concrete screws. If your mount has holes large enough for it, you can use this 5/16 concrete anchor concrete screw, and that will give you a little bit more strength. But a lot of times you have a TV mount where this is too large and it won't fit. If you have a larger spaces or those slots, then you can use that. And then if you get at least 1 inch, then you don't even really need spacers, because the bolt will be so sturdily into the concrete. Yeah, it'll be kind of sticking out a little, but it should hold it up if you don't over tighten it. But preferably you want those spacers. And you can use all kinds of different concrete screws. This is a Torx T30 flathead screw, and it's just, see, that's a 1/4 inch, and that barely fits, but it does fit. And then that can go on, and that's fine. It sticks out like that, but because it's beveled like that, it's gonna center into the hole and be nice and tight. If you have a space, you just don't want to use these shorter ones because then that won't even touch. And even this one, if you hold it up there, it hits the concrete, and then it's about a half an inch, so that's not good enough. Like I said, if you have some kind of covering directly over the brick or concrete, then you can just drill through it just like you would the concrete with the 3/16 bit, and then you'll drive the screws all the way through the covering, plaster, or whatever it is, and then it'll have at least an inch into the material behind it, the brick or the concrete. And then that's the hard part. Once you get up the TV mount, the easy part is to just follow the instructions. And then in this case, this is telescoping. And then you just put the bolt in on the back of the TV and then mount it per the instructions onto the TV mount. And that's the easy part. Level it and all that. And then you'll have a TV on your concrete wall.